Hey, great to have you here. So today we're going to do a little bit of an unboxing and take a look at the Frieren SH Figuarts figure. I know this figure came out about a couple months ago, but just wound up getting mine in this past week, so a little late to the party, but I wanted to take a look at it either way. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in and take a look. So front of the packaging here, you obviously get the silhouette of Frieren there with the little image as well. Looking to the side, we have a little side panel with her with that smiling kind of goofy face. Then on the back here, her with her staff and a few of the different face options there as well. And showing off really that little extra accessory that she has. And then on the side, just in a action pose as well. So not a whole lot different. Obviously, when you get an SH Figuarts, you kind of expect this standard packaging. So more or less what you would typically expect with one of those. So with that, let's just jump right in and open the Frieren figure. Let's take a look. And this is my first time opening it. I've seen images and then videos from folks, but this is my first time seeing in person Frieren. And looks like similar to when they have other accessory stands and so forth, looks like that is on the back here attached. So let's just disconnect that. That should be just taped on, I would guess. Yep, right there. If we get it from this side. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Very obviously, you can tell I did not prepare this packaging. Is that? Oh, that's stuck underneath. It's taped. Okay, there we go. Cool. So that's highlighting. We'll take a look at this a little bit later too, but her magic ability, just showing that visual there. I think Fern comes with one as well, so that's cool. They include these. I'm not sure how deep they're gonna go with the Frieren line. I think those are the only two out right now, or Fern is still coming out some places depending on where you are, but those are the only two that we're aware of at this point. But hopefully we get the rest of her party. Frieren's an IP I've dabbled into. I've read about half of the manga. I've heard the anime is great too. I've not taken a look at the anime though, but the manga I've really enjoyed, just having that fantasy vibe. I know a lot of shows probably, or a lot of mangas probably do fantasy, but I had been kind of just blasted with a lot of the same shonen type material where you have like JJK or I'm trying to think of other ones like those type of vibes where it's like you have a cursed main protagonist who is kind of in between two parties where it's like the bad side and the good side, and they're conflicted because they're stuck in the middle, just based off of the situation they've been put in. I think there's a lot of things like that, like Tokyo Ghoul is another one that comes to mind. There's that similar vibe. So Frieren was the first time I really dove into the fantasy manga, so I personally have enjoyed it thus far. Let me know what you guys think about Frieren overall. All right, so let's take off this top piece as well. And then, I didn't even know she came with different hairs. That's interesting to see. So we have her here. I don't think I've ever seen a figure art just come wrapped in a bag like this. Normally they have like their hip skirt or so forth, but this is just straight up in a bag and that's all. So interesting with how that showed up, but we'll take a look. I think there's three main areas. I know a lot of people do similar structures to reviews of in-person figures, and I am just kind of your average Joe consumer, so I'm not an expert when it comes to articulation or excellent joints or things along those lines. So I'm gonna be your more regular person reviewing this, and I think the three areas I'm gonna cover are visual aesthetic, articulation a little bit as well, and then accessories. So those are the three areas I'm really gonna cover and let you know my thoughts overall. So just right off the bat, visual aesthetic, I think she definitely works. She definitely has the look of the show, or the manga, I would say, in my perspective. So look like she's got a little, I feel like Figuarts a lot of times will have weird kind of scuffing on joints just because of how things were cut and so forth, but we will, as I said, I think her aesthetic looks great. We'll start with pulling out a few of her other items before we go through her entire articulation here. So let's look at the head options we have. So you saw, obviously, her main default head. You have here, it's a lot similar. It's maybe just smiling a little bit more, like the other ones, it's just kind of a neutral face, whereas this one is more of a smiling face. And then we have a bit of a shocked face, I think, with this one is the objective. And then the silly kind of animated face here we have with the ears down as well. I think that one's super fun to throw out there. I don't know if that's like the default one people really stick with, but it's a cool variation to include. And then hand-wise, wow, these are very small. Let me just try to honestly dump these out. Okay. So we come with the open hands and then very small fists as well. So we have a set of those and also a set of, it appears to be more of a pull grabbing hand. So very similar to the fist, except there's an option to put the pole in the hand. I'll just set those up here so you can kind of start to see all those more or less on screen. And then prayer hands. So relatively standard for the most part with Figuarts. A lot of times you get open hands, you get the clenched fist. Her variations, I would say, would be the option to hold the pole with these two hands, and then the clenched fist is the unique thing to her that not other Figuarts would typically have. So it looks like here is our stand for the magic effect. And then this came out too, so I'll have to take a look to see how exactly you build this. I don't know if that's like just sets in there or, yeah, I assume that's gonna set in there and then you're gonna put the magic effect in between that little gap, I would imagine is how it'll be done. And then on top of that for accessories, we have alternate hair. So I don't know if this just provides a bit of a different look. So if you have her more like in an action pose as opposed to just setting over her shoulders, these can be, let's see if it's used. Yeah, I guess like this one, I think that's an example of it being used. It's more like a windswept option depending on how you want to do things. So yeah, I mean, as far as variation, that'll be interesting to throw in there. I think that either one should be fine to use. These will have to be super careful. These look like very small little pegs to plug in there. So as with all Figuarts, be careful when you're plugging them in. They're not as bad as, I feel like I've seen some other figures, stuff like NECA where you have to heat up the joints a lot. Haven't really ever had to do that with Figuarts, but just be careful probably with putting these in because they feel like they're probably super brittle coming in and out of the hairpiece for her head there. Then finally, probably the coolest accessory is her staff. So really like the look of this. Obviously with Frieren, this had to come with her. The magic accessory, something definitely good to include, but this is something that was gonna come with her regardless. And yeah, really cool overall look. I don't think there's anything that I think is overly missing. I'm trying to think what you could have included with her, but I think this pretty much covers it. The only main thing I can think of is there's kind of that meme where she gets stuck in a chest, a kind of a mimic chest. You could have thrown something like that in there, I guess, but maybe that'll be DLC down the line if they choose to continue this line, which hopefully they do because, as I said, I've really enjoyed the IP as far as the manga, and I imagine many other people do too. So we'll have to see how the support goes across the board, but overall for accessories, I think pretty strong performance. I would put this maybe about an 8 out of 10 overall. And then when it comes to aesthetic, as I mentioned, this definitely looks like Frieren. So I'm gonna say aesthetic wise, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10, at least thus far, unless I see anything that's overly glaring, but that is my thoughts there. When it comes to articulation, as I said, I am not the expert to be judging based off that, but I'm gonna do my best to kind of evaluate from here. So I assume if you took the hair out, you would just kind of pull it just like that. And I don't know if this is the left or the right one. Is there a way I should be able to tell that? Yeah, we'll just try putting it in. Actually, that wasn't too bad to swap in and out, so maybe not as problematic as I mentioned. Even something like that where you do one, half the other, kind of provides that variety, so not a bad look overall. And as I said, not as miserable plugging these in and out. It looks like it went in and out relatively smoothly without too much concern for anything snapping off. Head full goes fully around. God, you could do something really creepy with a total 360 option for her head swivel. Not a whole lot of movement up and down just because of her collar really prevents a lot of that, which I'm generally somebody who prefers the visual more than the overextended articulation, depending on the figure maybe. Like Frieren's not doing super high kicks or stuff like that, so the ability for her to articulate can be relatively limited to her arms and legs and so forth, so it doesn't have to be like stretching and just doing a lot of variety action poses. So I think that's fine. Obviously, you maybe could have done something where the head was placed a little bit higher or the neck was a little bit higher to allow the joint to get a little bit more movement. So, but you're not doing much up and down. You're doing plenty of left and rights, but you're definitely not throwing it up and down too much. Then when it comes to the arms, so this is all plastic, nothing cloth here. I know people were hoping we would get more cloth accessories or just a wired cape or something like that when it comes to anything that has any loose fitting clothing. People generally seem to be fans of those. Let's swap out this hair too while we're at, just to give more visibility. And I think really to get these out, my strategy has just been kind of rocking it back and forth. Obviously, as I said, being gentle with it, but we're a little blurry with the camera there. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I dig the windswept hair, or just the loosely flowing hair. I probably would keep it with more of this look, but either one is awesome. But as I was trying to say, the arms are somewhat limited by this top piece here. You get a little bit of a gap there where the arms do get some movement. So it's nice that they cut a little bit of piece so you can get some movement up. It looks like I mean, as I said, you're not throwing her hands like way above her head, but that's about as far as I would go. So like a 90-degree angle with her arm to her body. And you could try to stretch it farther, but then you're moving this piece out a lot, and I'd rather keep things relatively, not overly stretched out. So as far as going forward, you can do plenty there, but once again, you're moving that piece up a lot, which I would not overly recommend. It's kind of weird her elbows are more tucked into that top piece. It would be nice if her arms may be like freakishly long then, but you can't really do an elbow bend without it interfering here because the elbow bend occurs above that essentially. So probably not bending her arms too much. If you wanted to, let's see. I mean, you definitely can get some bend to it. And sorry if I'm kind of looking at her off camera, so if I'm missing the camera, I apologize. But I mean, that's probably as far as you're going. It seems like the arm doesn't have a whole lot of issues with moving more further, but this piece is just going to be a hassle for you to do too much more than that. So you're probably sticking with straight arms for the most part. And then her wrists, obviously you get a rotation there, a little bit of swiveling too. Same with both sides. I want to try to make sure I identify both sides because I think a lot of times I look at reviews where they just do one side to emphasize quickly the articulation ability, but then you realize later like, oh, the right side is a QC issue that everybody has. So I'll do my best to make sure both are covered, but it seems to be a similar situation on this side. The chest piece here seems to be a little bit more solidified. There's still that slit, but it's definitely tighterly closed than that one. And I don't think that's just because of how they're sitting. Maybe it is. It just feels like the arm on this side is more protruding from that gap there. So overall, not doing a whole lot with the arms. So relatively limited with articulation thus far. As I mentioned, the head can't move a whole lot. The arms can't move a whole lot. Legs, similar situation here. It looks like we do get a little bit of a slit there, but same as this side. There's a little bit more gapping now. It feels very tight overall. So you don't want to push that too far because you may stretch things out a little bit, but that's about as far as you're going articulation wise. And once again, probably okay for this type of character because you're not doing a lot of action posing beyond just holding her staff and using her magic abilities. So you can push it farther, it feels like, as far as the legs ability to move, but this skirt piece keeps things really tightly confined, I would say. And same with going forward and backwards, like this thing, that is not allowing a whole lot of options to go forward. I'm meeting a lot of resistance there, so not a whole lot of way of articulation, maybe a little bit more with that leg, but still not a whole lot. You definitely have to like lean her back to try to get some of that. I did kind of skip over the waist, so swivels there, that's good. And then a little bit of a bend, not a whole lot. There is some chest. You can see the chest piece moving up and down there. I don't think the waist has a whole lot in it other than swiveling side to side. Knees are great, it appears. And they look more or less okay. You kind of see a bit of a rounded area, so it's not the cleanest knee visibility wise, just because it looks like it's cut there. That doesn't look like a natural kneecap, so we'll provide some criticism there. And then when it comes to the foot, looks like we get a little bit of an ankle tilt, not a whole lot, a little bit, and then more down than up, I would say. And then the toe hinge, like most Figuarts included there. So overall, my thoughts on articulation, probably relatively low. Like if I'm trying to see how to rate this, because technically she's not meant to have a whole lot of articulation, and because of the aesthetic matching correctly and us having a hard plastic here, articulation is limited. But I'm putting that probably around, let's say, a 5 out of 10. You could go higher or lower depending on your reasonableness. Like if you don't expect articulation here, you could go higher. If you're, expecting a lot more to be compared to like a regular figure, you could probably drop it even a little bit lower, but we'll say 5 out of 10 for that one. So as mentioned, aesthetic, I think this one's a 9 out of 10. When it comes to accessories, 8, and then articulation, probably around a 5 out of 10. So let's set her up. I'm gonna take a look at this accessory as well. We'll keep it live as long as it doesn't take super long. I don't wanna overly bore you guys, but let us open up this accessory here, just to provide you with full visibility in what this looks like in the process of putting it together. As mentioned, I don't know if there's necessarily a front or back. This feels like mine's almost peeling on the edges, so I don't know if you can see here. It's a little tough to tell, but this is a solid plastic piece, but it feels like it's like surrounded by, maybe you peel this off, that's probably why. Yep, okay. Apologize, as I said, first time opening this. You would in theory peel this off, it appears, to keep the figure looking in good condition prior to putting it up. So it feels like there's a sticker on both sides that you would pull off and then use that afterwards, so it's not damaged in transit essentially. So that's always good to see. I don't know, I assume you guys can let me know, but I assume this magic is accurate representation of what she does in the show and the manga. I don't remember necessarily specific spells that are being used and what they look like, but as I said, I think you would just plug this in kind of right there, and then from there you would plug that in there. So obviously it's kind of goofy looking because it's literally just a piece of plastic, like very thin. It's not actually like a 3D-ish looking spell. It's kind of a 2D image because it just has one flat look to it. But you could have some really cool looks where you have her with her staff in her hand and just using the spell towards somebody, or just on your shelf, just facing forward in general. But overall, I think this is a purchase I would recommend. If you're a fan of the IP, this seems like a good pickup. I'm trying to be more mindful of what I grab in kind of recent times, just because I realize you grab everything in a line, your shelf gets full immediately, and then it kind of devalues when you do pick something up, just because you quickly set it up in your display and then you move on to the next one. So I'm trying to personally be more mindful of what I grab as opposed to just covering here on the channel. But this is one I do recommend just because I do like the Frieren franchise. I don't know necessarily if I would grab more than just Frieren herself. I've debated that if Fern made sense or anybody else that they may come out with, but I think for now I'm fine with just Frieren. If I choose to expand beyond that, I'll definitely let you guys know, and I'll probably cover any future releases as well, even if I don't pick up the figure. But I'm a big fan of, as the show, or the manga, and the show I've heard is really good. Overall, this figure I would heavily recommend if you're a fan of the IP as well. And if you want to have the line be supported long term, I would definitely recommend picking her up, because they're going to base further releases on that. As I said, Fern's coming out, but beyond that, I haven't seen anything. So they may be waiting to see how successful Fern is before they decide, hey, hey, let's come out with more characters, more people in her party essentially from the IP. But if you want to have it be successful and have more characters come out, definitely pick it up. If you're like me, who just really like the IP and you're maybe fine with just Frieren, I think this is a good choice for you as well. So overall, I put Frieren, let's say maybe, I don't have anything to compare to because this is my first Figuarts review as far as score purposes go. Let's put her at an 8 out of 10 overall, I would say. So what are your guys' thoughts? Is this a figure you have picked up already? As I mentioned, I'm a little late to the party, so maybe you have this already in your collection. Is this one you're hoping to grab? Are you a fan of the IP in general? What are your thoughts on Frieren as a whole when it comes to SH Figuarts and the IP overall? So I do want to point this out before jumping. Actually, I don't know if I'll cut this in the middle of the video or put it here at the end, but I did not take a look at using the staff or the hands together. I was curious when I took a look at, obviously this is an enclosed fist. There's no way to like wrap the fingers away from the hand. And the end of the staff is not gonna fit in that hand. So I was like, how the heck would you ever put this in and use this as a staff essentially with her character, as you can see here. And I noticed, so for folks that don't know, they put the instructions, they used to put it on an individual paper in the box, but here we have it listed on the side. And you can see here, it appears, I don't have the best lighting, but it appears that you have the staff that can be removed and then you put the hand on the staff and then reattach it. So let's take a look at that. Once again, doing this live. So, okay, yep, there we go. I took that off camera, but you really just, this unplugs from there. So you would unplug it, presumably, and then from there, you would just put the hand through it. I guess that's how that would work. And does that slide down, or is that, it has to go down further than that, right? Like, because this end doesn't come off, I don't think. No, it feels like attached. So how does that, we have to force it, I guess? Yeah, that feels very tight on the hand there. Not this one. Okay, that one's a little better. It feels like you're kind of rubbing, so I'm worried. I don't think this staff is painted. I think it's just a solid colored piece, but you definitely feel it like sliding, so it's like scratching against it. So maybe be careful when you put those hands on, but does this one struggle with getting on further than that? I'm sorry, I keep coming off camera because I'm looking at it in person. But, okay, you gotta definitely, this hand, I had to, similar to the hairpiece, you have to kind of like slide it back and forth to get it to actually move, but wanted to make sure I covered that as well because obviously that's how you'll typically show Frieren, and we'll take the hands off here and maybe throw that on there. So, all right, if she's got her staff in her hand, which side do we want to have doing what? It doesn't really matter, but maybe have, right, that is her right hand. So we want to have this one further down, I guess. Maybe not that far down, but. These are similar to the hairpiece. These are very tiny joints because the hands are obviously not very large. I always got to be careful with snapping these in because you just feel like you're going to snap the peg off. Jeez. All right. I want to make sure I'm sharing how difficult this can be though with you guys. Okay. I think that got on. I never heard a click, but sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Okay, so then now this side, put the hand upside down. So you're like holding it. This seems like this would be the challenge, is to then line this up. And honestly, the image they use, it feels like they definitely have her chest piece bent up. Like you can see here, her left shoulder blade is just bent up. So maybe it's not an issue to keep that bent at all times, but I don't know how you would really keep that because, as I said, that elbow is underneath it. So you have to really bend it. My elbow joint feels very stiff. So I'm glad I gave it a 5 out of 10, not anything better, because that feels like it does not move as much as I was hoping it would move. And you gotta be careful here because you have the hand attached to the staff. So a lot of things are stiff and connected, but you're having to plug in the hand to her other wrist there. So you have to have it like already the correct distance you want it. And then you can't move the arms much after that, I would guess, because you've kind of locked in. I mean, you can move them, slide the hands maybe. There we go, I heard that one pop. Like you can slide the hands up and down, but you're probably just moving the staff as far as where they're at in her arm there. And then you would put this side back on. I'm glad I covered that because when I watched some reviews of this, I don't think they talked about how to use that ultimately, but that's how it would work. Obviously not the best aesthetic of a pose or anything like that, but that's how you would essentially get the staff in her hands. So just want to make sure I cover that as well. Thanks, guys. I will say too, sorry, I'm throwing this in as well. I think this is the pose I would typically probably keep on my shelf. It may change it up every once in a while, but this allows that chest piece not to be overly extended, but still includes the staff as well. So probably the same look we're kind of seeing right there on the side of the box as well. I think that's the main look I really would overly utilize, same as this picture. This one, as I said, it's going to be using that that softer plastic is going to be stretching a little bit by doing that. Obviously, if you want to throw that every once in a while, it's okay to do that too, but to try to prevent stretching and stuff like that, I'll probably keep it in more the one-handed action pose, preparing for battle type looks that she has though. So that's it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.